Hello everyone, it's Jamie. Welcome to another video. I know it's slightly late, but we're going to be getting into my October TBR. These are all the books I want to read in October. I have a very ambitious large selection of a whole mix of different genres, but I have a lot of videos planned for October, a lot of reading vlog concepts and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy this TBR video. I hope this gives you a little insight into some of my October content that I've got planned. And yeah, I just hope you enjoy hearing about my reading plans. I've got about 16 books on my TBR, so let's just get straight into it. First of all, let's talk about my Patreon reads. Okay, so for my Patreon, we have two separate book clubs on there. We have our series read along and our main book club. And so for our main book club this month, we are going to be reading Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I'm kind of scared of this one because I really didn't like The Atlas 6, which is the only other book by Olivia Blake that I've read. However, I am someone who always gives authors second chances. I'm not going to write an author off because of just one of their books. So I liked the sound of Masters of Death, so that's why I decided to pick it up. And now we're going to be reading it for my book club, which is really exciting. I feel like this is still going to be quite cozy and romantic while still being in the kind of spooky season theme, because our main character is a vampire. They're also a struggling real estate agent. I think they are trying to sell this haunted house while also dealing with another character who I think is related to the Grim Reaper in a sense. It just sounds so ridiculous but so fun and so sweet while having that kind of ghoulish, haunted, scary background. So I cannot wait to read this. Actually, it does sound really good, and I'm excited to just give Olivia Blake another chance. Then the other book that we'll be reading for my Patreon this month is Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. This is the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and I'm actually still yet to read the first book, which I was supposed to read last month, but I'm going to be starting the first book this week so I can then go straight into this one. So kind of cute that we've got two vampire books for my Patreon this month. That was actually completely unintentional, but here we are. The Stalking Jack the Ripper series is about a young forensics student called Audrey, who I believe gets obsessed with trying to solve these mysteries. It is YA historical fiction, so all these mysteries are big unsolved mysteries from back in Victorian England. Although I do think there is going to be a little hint of fantasy in there as well, because I mean, Dracula, he's a vampire, they don't exist. So yeah, I feel like that's gonna be really fun, and I can't wait to get into this one too. Okay, now let's just go fully random. I have a bunch of books that I want to read for videos, and then I've also added in some spooky books in there as well that I could be interested in reading. So let's start with, this one's not for any video at all, but I really want to read The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. I read Mile High earlier in the year and absolutely fell in love with it. I really enjoyed it. And so this is the second book in that series. It is between two characters from the first novel, and I cannot wait. It's sports romance, forced proximity, not enemies to lovers, I don't think. Maybe fake dating. I don't know. I've heard really good things. I've heard that this is even better than the first book, and I loved the first book. That was 5 stars for me. So I cannot wait to get into The Right Move. I've also picked out The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. This is a book that has been on my TBR shelf for 5+ years. I swear to God. But this is a YA horror, I believe. I think just because I've had it on my TBR for so long, I think now is probably the time that I should be reading it. I believe it's just a really spooky atmosphere set in New England. We follow 3 main characters who are trying to fight this kind of evil entity. I'm not sure totally what it's about, but I figure it's time to get some horror off my TBR shelf this month, so this one feels like something I should be reading. Another horror book that I've had on my TBR for far too long is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I know is a bit of a horror classic, a bit of a gothic classic, so kind of disgusting that I haven't read it yet, but I'm really keen to give it a go. I know there is the TV show adaptation as well, so I was thinking I could probably watch that TV show once I finish reading the book, or even just watch and read alongside at the same time. But I really love haunted house stories, and so reading kind of a gothic classic seems like something really appropriate for this month, so I cannot wait to read this. This month I would also really love to read The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. If we're gonna go with the theme that I'm trying to get a bunch of books off my TBR that have been on for a long time, I guess this is the month that we're doing that, because The Gilded Wolves again has been on my TBR for so long. But this is a little bit different. This is a YA a historical fantasy. It is a heist in 1889 in France, I believe. I've heard really mixed things about this series, but it's always really intrigued me because I absolutely love heist stories and I love stories that have like a big cast. So I feel like this is gonna be really, really fun and I cannot wait to dive in and hopefully find a new favorite fantasy series. Next, I would also really love to read Shark Heart, A Love Story by Emily Haybeck. I hauled this recently. I bought this on my birthday and it's because it is a book that just seems so uncannily up my alley. Like, it is so me. And basically this is, I don't know if it's literary fiction, but I believe it is a story about this newlywed couple, this newly married couple, and the man all of a sudden starts physically turning into a great white shark and they have to figure out how to make their marriage work. It just sounds so ridiculous and insane, but honestly really beautiful at the same time. I don't know, I just love sharks. So anyway, I really can't wait to read this. I feel like it sounds really, really fun. Next, I would also really love to read The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This is like everyone's favorite cozy fantasy romance to read during this season, and I feel so out of the loop. Like, I have not read this yet and I've heard so many good things about it, so I think now is finally the time. I believe it is a second chance romance about a woman who accidentally curses her ex, and then when they meet up again years later, they have to work together to figure out how to like stop this curse. Again, it sounds really, really fun. I just have so much FOMO seeing everyone read this, and so I'm like, now is the time. So I will be reading The Ex-Hex this month and I'm very excited. I'm also going to be reading What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I would really love to read this. It's a nice little horror novella. My friend Kiala read it recently and was like, yeah, it's scary, it's like weird, you'll love it. So I think now is the time. I believe it's a horror basically about like Mother Nature and like the earth fighting back against humans, and honestly love that theme, really, really do. So I cannot wait to read this. I feel like it would be really spooky and scary and I'm excited. Next is another book that I've put in many TBR videos and never gotten around to, but that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, which is a story set in Scotland about a coven of witches, which I love the sound of. It sounds very Macbeth and I'm obsessed with that. I think we follow 4 main characters within this coven trying to fight back at someone who is threatening to bring the coven down from the inside. They're threatening to like sabotage it. They're trying to find out who that person is. Sounds really exciting and I just love witchy books, so I cannot wait to read this one as well. I would also really, really love to read the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey. I finally hauled this recently and everyone was like, Jamie, you will love it. Like, the amount of people who have told me I will absolutely love this series. I figured now is the time to read it, and do not worry, I am going to do a full reading vlog reading this novel, reading this series at least, but this is the whole bind up, and I feel like I could read this all in one go. Like, I've read books this length before, so I feel like I can read the series all in one go, but I will be doing a full reading vlog on this series just based on how many people have told me how much I would love this. So I can't wait to get into this. Basically, it is a romance, like dark romance, about a woman who is a serial killer who starts to fall in love and start up a romance with the chief detective who is like investigating all of her murders. That just sounds like there's so much room for drama and so exciting, and I'm really keen. So do not worry, there will be a spoiler-free reading vlog on this, and I cannot wait to read it. It sounds absolutely ridiculous. Next is another 2023 release I've been really looking forward to, and that is The Witch and the Vampire by Francesca Flores. This is a sapphic fantasy about a witch and a vampire, and that's honestly all I needed to know. I know I've got a lot of witchy vampire books on here, but like now is the season for that, I imagine. I do believe this is somewhat of like a cozy fantasy. I believe the stakes aren't going to be super high because it mostly is about this beautiful sapphic love story about 2 people from 2 separate worlds, but it just sounds so exciting. So of course I cannot wait to read this. I love sapphic stories, I love witch stories, I love vampire stories, so it just has all of the ingredients for a success for me. Another book I'm really interested in reading in October is Scattered All Over the Earth by Yoko Tsuwada, which I believe is a dystopian about Japan just completely disappearing. Like, we live in this world where Japan just doesn't exist anymore. It has disappeared. And we follow our main character who believes she is the last Japanese person left in the entire world until she meets this guy who also believes he is the last Japanese person in the entire world. It sounds really, really beautiful, like a beautiful romance, but also a lot of discussion about identity. And I feel like this is going to be a really fascinating read, so of course I cannot wait to pick it up. I'd also really love to read The Nature of Witches this month. I don't know, I'm just in a really witchy mood right now. But this is another YA fantasy that I think just sounds really, really fun. It's a standalone, and we follow our main character who is an ever witch, where her magic is like tied to each season. So it's all very seasonal magic. I believe there is a little romance in here as well, so I cannot wait to read this. It just seems like the coziest vibe for this month. Another book I would really love to read is Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. I got this book recently, and it's just been staring at me on my TBR shelf. And I'm like, you know what? Now is the time to read it. It looks so, so good. I believe this is a thriller. We follow our main character who is a bit of an introvert. She's a bit of a weirdo, and she works at a bookshop. And then when this new girl comes in and starts working at the bookshop too, she gets really like scarily obsessed with her. I love stories about female friendship, but also stories about obsession, especially when they go hand in hand. And I cannot wait to read this. It looks so fun, and it will be nice to break up some of my more like traditional kind of paranormal horror with something that's a bit more thrilling and set in reality. So I cannot wait to read this as well. It looks really fun. And then finally, the last book on my TBR is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This is another book that I've had on my TBR for many years now, and I finally think that this is the month I can tick it off. But basically this is another sapphic witchy book, which I love, about a coven. Obviously there are some themes in this TBR video, as you can see. But yeah, I believe this book is set in Salem. There is some really dark evil magic that's been introduced into this town, and then the coven of witches have to try and like protect the town from this evil magic that is coming in. And there's also some lesbian romances, which I just love. So yeah, I cannot wait to add another witchy lesbian book to the roster for October. Cannot wait. So these are all the books I plan on reading in October. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these and if you recommend any of them for me. I cannot wait to get started on some of the videos I have planned and some of these books. Also, of course, I love seeing your guesses for any like potential reading vlogs that may be happening from my TBR. So let me know if you do have any guesses, even though I feel like it's pretty obvious. But yeah, love you all so much. Thank you so much for watching. A cheeky reminder that all my socials are linked down below, as well as my Patreon. So if you do want to see more exclusive content from me, the reading vlogs for the book club books, for example, that is all going to be on the page. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you very, very soon in the next video. Bye.